All right, welcome. I want you to forget the daily headlines for just a moment. We're going to look at the numbers that are quietly, right now, shaping the next decade for the U.S. economy and, frankly, its place in the world. Think of these as the foundational cracks that, once you see them, you just can't unsee.
So what are these three numbers? I mean, they're not just random statistics, right? They're more like the invisible walls and the open doors that are going to define every, and I mean every, major decision made in the years to come. So let's break them down.
Okay, first up, we're hitting a wall. A hard limit on our economic potential. And look, this isn't about a slow quarter or some temporary dip. No, this is a structural ceiling, and it has huge implications for everything. Everything from our national debt to our ability to compete on the world stage.
And here it is, 1.8%. I want you to burn this number into your brain. This is what economists are now calling America's new economic speed limit. And again, this is not a temporary thing. This is the new normal for how fast our economy can actually grow. And let me tell you, it is way slower than what we're used to.
So, what does that even mean? Potential growth. Well, think of it like this. It's the absolute maximum speed an economy can run out without overheating, without causing runaway inflation. And it really just boils down to two simple things. One, how many people are working, and two, how productive those people are. That's it. And our big problem? It's that first part, the number of workers.
And you have to understand, this has nothing to do with which party is in power. This is pure demographics. To put it really simply, we are running out of workers. An economy is like a giant engine, right? It needs people to run. And if you have more people retiring and leaving the workforce than you have young people entering it, well, that engine is going to slow down. It's a fundamental headwind we're fighting against. Okay, let's move on to our second big finding. Now this one shows a really critical fragility in the main driver of our entire economy, the American consumer. The engine might look like it's running strong from the outside, but underneath it is dangerously unbalanced.
Our second number, 45%. Now, what does that mean? It represents a massive concentration of something absolutely crucial. Spending power. It's a huge sign that our economy, which, looks pretty strong on the surface, is actually standing on a very, very narrow foundation.
Let me give you an analogy. Imagine the entire U.S. economy is this giant cruise ship, and consumer spending is the engine powering it forward. Well, we've gotten to a point where just 10% of the passengers are doing almost half the work to keep that engine churning. So what happens if that small, wealthy group gets a little nervous and decides to stop spending? The whole ship could just grind to a halt.
I mean, you can see the imbalance right here. That slice of the pie for the top 10% is almost as big as the slice for literally everyone else combined, the other 90%. And that means if something spooks the wealthy, a sudden stock market dip, for instance, it doesn't just affect them. It has a massive, outsized impact on the entire economy.
All right, that brings us to our third and final finding, and this one. This one reveals a fiscal reality that's going to constrain every single policy decision from here on out. And please, don't think of this as some far-off future problem. The mechanics are already locked in, and the whole thing is accelerating. Here's the number 1. That's it. Within our lifetimes, that will be the rank, number 1, for a single line item in the entire federal budget. It's going to surpass everything else we think of when we think of government spending.
Just let that sink in for a second. By 2050, the projections show we'll be spending more money just on interest payments for our old debt than on national defense, more than on Social Security, more than on Medicare. In fact, more than on education, science, and infrastructure combined. We'll spend more on the past than on the future.
And again, this is not a political issue, it's just math. You've got this combination of mandatory spending, think Social Security and Medicare, that just goes up automatically on autopilot. You combine that with higher interest rates, and you create this vicious, self-perpetuating cycle. The problem is literally compounding on itself, getting bigger and bigger, faster and faster. So, okay, let's recap. We've got a slow growth economy, propped up by a tiny group of wealthy spenders, and it's all drowning in debt. Now you might be thinking, okay, those sound like domestic problems, but here's the thing. When you put all three of them together, they create a massive vulnerability for us on the world stage. So, here's how it all connects. An economy like ours, with low growth potential that relies on just a handful of rich consumers, well, it's incredibly fragile. If that small group pulls back, demand doesn't just dip, it can collapse almost overnight. And that sudden drop sends shockwaves through global supply chains. We're talking factories shutting down, shipping routes getting rerouted, and all that chaos creates openings. It creates opportunities for adversaries to step in, take control of key resources, and grow their influence, all at our expense.
So, ignoring these consumer-driven vulnerabilities, it's not just an economic risk. It's a direct geopolitical risk, and that means the very first directive for any policymaker has to be building resilience. And you start with the physical goods, the stuff that actually underpins our entire economy. Look, this is the most immediate, actionable step we can take to insulate our economy and our national security from the shocks that are frankly inevitably coming. So please, remember those three numbers: 1.8%, 45%, and number 1. They are not just data points on a spreadsheet. They're a countdown clock, and the time to act is right now.